Okay.
Hi, this is Brian Razzaque, the founder and CEO of Social Toaster. He's a local Baltimore success story, and he's going to share his personal experiences of hopefully doing what you guys want to do in the actual environment which we're working in Baltimore. So Brian, let's start off.
Yes,
So why don't you give us a little background of how you got to Maryland and Baltimore, and what part of your life did you arrive?
Sure.
And then why you wanted to build your business here.
Okay. Maybe just I'm going to take a step back. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for inviting me. Just so you know, I've known Neil for a while now. He asked me to come, help out with this program, and specifically today's topic is fundraising. And I know a little bit about the Founder, so I have absolutely no affiliation with the Founder Institute at all.
Except he's a mentor.
Other than, Neil said, as we get this thing off the ground, you want to be a mentor. I'm like, I have no idea what that means, but sure. So just kind of clarifying my role in all of this. And then the reason why he thought that I would be helpful to some of you talking about fundraising is that with Social Toaster specifically, I've raised to date about $6.5 million in outside investment. And depending on your perspective, that's either a lot or it's not very much. And I'm happy to talk about whether you think that's a lot or not very much, because I think right now there's a lot of hype, and everyone's like, to me, I lived through the dot-com boom and bust, and it sort of feels like the good old days where people are just throwing money everywhere. And it seems like every day you open the paper and you read about some company and they got just like a ridiculous amount of money, $20 million for some idea, and you read the idea and you're like, that makes no sense whatsoever. So what you never hear about is what's on the other side of that. What's the valuation, right? How much do they give up for that? So happy to answer questions around that, happy to answer questions around the process. I'll tell you a little bit about my story, coming back to your question, and Neil really sort of wanted to emphasize this as more of a fireside chat. So I assume, I see actually some familiar faces from other talks I've given. I imagine quite a number of you have companies or have been working at companies, so be curious. Can I just see a show of hands, who has a company right now? Okay.
That's a high percentage.
Yeah. So I imagine you're here because you want to raise money. The rest of you, I imagine you have an idea and you want to know, after you get your idea off the ground, how do you go about raising money? So we can talk about that a little bit. My background, so I am a Hopkins grad. I graduated in 2000 with degrees in biology and computer science. I actually started my first company as a sophomore in 1998 at Hopkins. I started a web application. At the time, it was just a web company. It matured into a web application development firm when I graduated. By the time I graduated, I had 4 full-time employees. For the next 4 months, I grew the company to about 22 people and ran that for a couple more months, and then the bottom fell out of the market. So coming into 2001, I had an office in DC with 8 people plus a Baltimore office. The DC office, we were basically the outsource firm for NBC Interactive. They came to me one day and they said, hey, we need you to cut everything tomorrow because NBC Interactive cut its budget by 96% globally. So I was stupid. I should have gone through the Founders Institute. I had no idea how to manage people or deal with sales. And these were all my friends. And I was like, we'll figure it out. We'll find the money. And 3 months later, I burned through all of the money that I had made, and I was completely upside down. I had to downsize and fire people anyway, and it took a couple more years to kind of dig out of that hole. Never went bankrupt, but it took several years to kind of get out from underneath some, debt and back taxes and fun things that no 21-year-old should ever have to deal with. So around 2004, we're kind of back on my feet. I downsized, kind of 2001, we went down to 8 people, stayed at 8 people for a couple of years. By 2004, I was 11, and then I ramped up pretty quickly. And for the next decade or so, my company was one of the largest web application development firms in the region. So everything was all self-funded, bootstrapped, with that particular business. So all my experience there was really kind of school of hard knocks. I did end up, I'm lectured faculty for University of Maryland. I taught entrepreneurship and information systems. I had to put that on hold just in the last couple of years because my schedule doesn't permit it. But anyway, around 2007, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I've been scrapping, it out. I had a lifestyle business, as Neil said. I was making a decent living, but my own teaching experience, and I also, at that point in my career, most of my personal efforts were involved with clients, acting as essentially sort of outsourced chief technology officer or chief marketing technology officer. And so I had a lot of exposure to much larger companies and could see how they ran. And we developed a lot of products for other startups where my shop, people had ideas, but I don't know how many of you are actually programmers. You have probably an idea. You may have some domain expertise. Whether you can actually build what you were thinking of is probably something else entirely. So if you had such an idea, I was the type of guy that you could go to build it. So really got to see the whole spectrum of things. Decided in 2007 that I didn't want a lifestyle company. I knew how to do, how to really build a scalable business. I wanted to do it myself. So I started restructuring my services company to be in a position where I could sell it. One of the hardest things that you'll ever learn if you ever have a consulting or service firm is that you can work for years and literally have nothing to show for it, other than a paycheck. And so, realized that I needed to rework how I was doing the business so that I could have something I could actually sell and transfer without just leaving all my clients in the lurch. And fortunately, I did that because 2008, the market crashed, and we were, because of how I restructured things, able to kind of weather that. We went from, in 2007, we had a peak year, we did about 2.7 million in 100% services revenue with about 24 people. We ended up going down to about 16 people. We're still doing about 1.8 million in revenue kind of through 2008, 2009 to 2010. So in spite of the economic downturn, we're actually more profitable than ever during this particular lean period. One thing that's worth mentioning is that in 2005, we kind of recovered. As I said, I was doing well, and the real estate market was really hot. And so one thing that I had done under that company is I built a product for the real estate industry, and I invested about $250,000 of my own money in building up a sort of marketing management platform for the real estate industry. And I was selling to small to mid-sized mortgage companies. And so one of the things that happened then, as you recall, if you were around then, 2007, 2008, the real estate market collapsed, and I lost everything that I had put into that business. I ramped it up, spun it off as a separate company, was just starting to ramp up. It was getting to the point where I was thinking, did I need to raise outside money, or what was going to happen? And all of a sudden, literally every single customer I had went out of business. So that was not cool. But then for some reason I decided I wanted to do it again. So 2008 to 2009 was trying to get my company to a place where I could sell it. The market's not great, so there's not a lot of buyers for a consulting firm at that point, but it was throwing off cash, and I was, again, kind of doing all right. And right around the same time, a lot of my clients were, we were the kind of guys behind the scenes for a number of other companies, ad agencies, PR firms. So if you needed something more than a simple website, again, I was the company that you could go to develop that. So a lot of our web partners, our agency partners rather, were like, hey, listen, social media seems to be like the next big thing. We've got clients asking about it. But then, how can we just differentiate ourselves? How can we charge, 10 grand a month for social when they're like, yeah, my college nephew can run our Facebook page for us. So started looking at, what was happening in social, what were people selling. I realized that at the time, it was, arguably today, it was a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? That people were like, yeah, we'll run your Facebook page and we'll get you all these fans. And I started asking, I'm an engineer, right? So what's the ROI? What are the metrics? And realized that very few people could answer that question. So I realized that you could take a string together about 7 different technologies, and you could actually put a process in place that would make it so you could engage people in a kind of a scalable manner in a way that could actually be tracked. And the idea came to me. I had a blog that I was publishing under my firm. My CTO one day came to me after I had published an article. He said, "Hey Brian, would you do me a favor? Would you let me know next time you publish the blog?" And so I said, "Yeah, of course." And I'm like, "This, why wouldn't I tell my own employees that we've updated our blog?" And I asked him the question. I said, "Would you be willing to share a link to these articles on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter?" He said, "Yes, I'd be happy to." So the next time I published a blog, I asked everyone in the company, "Hey guys, publish the blog. Please go share it out to every network you're on." And like 80% of them did it. Then the second time blog after that, I published it and I asked the same question. And I got 20% of the company did it. And from then on, if I could get 2 people to share it, I was lucky. And so I realized that it wasn't for like lack of desire, it was just too cumbersome, and that there's an opportunity that, if you could really streamline the sharing process, take all the thought and effort out of it, that you could engage an audience. And so that's the core of what Social Toaster is we built a marketing platform that was designed to streamline the sharing process. And then I recognized that you could, again, put some stuff in place to make it so you can measure the results. So that was the initial idea. Pitched the concept to the Hair Cuttery, some of you may know them. They sort of invested in the alpha version of it. It proved to be very successful. Convinced me that there was something here, so I invested some more money into it. We test marketed it in 2010 at South by Southwest, and I came back with business cards from companies I would never in a million years have thought that a guy in Baltimore could get his hands on, right? Google was interested, Sony was interested. So that convinced me that we had something meaningful. And so in 2010, I raised some friends and family money, and then I got an angel investor involved, and then we spun it off as a separate company. Spent the next 2 years, trying to find our niche and figure out the model and build out the platform. I was self-funding the entire time. In addition to the money I raised, I was also continuing to dump cash in from my other business. So in 2012, we had enough traction. I was able to raise a Series A round locally. We raised it ultimately ended up being about $2.275 million, which was sufficient to make it so that I could go ahead and sell my other company. At that point, the market had turned around, so there were some buyers. I broke even and, in fact, lost money in the long term on that deal. But considered it worthwhile because it freed me up to really focus my time and energy on Social Toaster, which I believe and continue to believe obviously has the lion's share of the upside. So did that in 2012. Since then, I've raised, I did 2 bridge funding rounds, raised $1.3 million in 2013, and just closed out a round for another $1.9 million or so this last year. And then we're contemplating, although depending on how things go, we may not need it, and if we can avoid it, I probably will. Looking at a B round, where if we do go ahead and raise a B round, we'll probably raise between 10 and 12 million. So that is my story.
So let me comment. So we're going to do questions at the end for Brian, because they're going to go long. Trust me.